We're leaving the transit station and heading to the final, largest, and most heavily tested neighborhood on our city map, the suburbs.
The suburbs.
I want you to visualize a large piece of land surrounded by a fence with a house in the middle. This is the law of possessors of land.
This is a massive area of tort law because property rights are deeply historical in this country. The rules are rigid, and the exam loves to test them.
First, let's define the word. Who is a possessor? Does it just mean the person whose name is on the deed at the bank?
No. A possessor is anyone who currently has legal control over the property. It includes the owner, but it also includes a tenant renting an apartment.
Oh, okay.
It even includes someone who is legally squatting through adverse possession. If you have the power to control who walks through the front door, you are the possessor and you hold the duty.
What if the electric company has a legal easement to run power lines across my backyard? Do they get these special land possessor rules?
No, they do not. An easement holder is just using the land. They don't possess it. They just owe a normal general duty of reasonable care to anyone they might injure with their power lines.
The outline notes that modern courts are starting to change the rules here, but the MBE focuses heavily on the traditional approach. What is the traditional approach?
The traditional approach takes every single human being who steps onto your property and sorts them into three distinct, rigid categories.
What are they?
Trespassers, licensees, and invitees. The duty you owe changes drastically depending on which label the person gets.
Let's start with category 1. Trespassers. These are people who cross your fence line without permission. Why would I owe any duty to someone breaking the law to be on my land?
The baseline rule is that you owe almost no duty to a trespasser. However, society has decided that human life is always more valuable than a piece of dirt.
Okay.
Therefore, you cannot use willful, wanton, or intentional misconduct against a trespasser.
Give me the classic example of that.
Spring guns. Booby traps. You own an empty farmhouse, and people keep breaking in to steal old jars. You are sick of it, so you rig a shotgun to a tripwire on the bedroom door.
A literal trap.
A trespasser breaks in, opens the door, and gets shot in the leg.
I mean, some people might say the trespasser reserved it.
Property law says absolutely not. You cannot use deadly force just to protect unoccupied property. You cannot do indirectly with a hidden trap what you would be forbidden to do directly if you were standing there. So no traps.
Aside from traps, what if the property is just naturally dangerous? Let's split trespassers into two groups. Group A, undiscovered trespassers. I have a massive farm, and I have absolutely no idea someone is hiking through the backwoods.
For an undiscovered trespasser, you owe zero duty. You don't have to make the land safe, and you have absolutely no duty to patrol or inspect your land looking for them.
Group B, discovered or anticipated trespassers. What if I notice a worn-down dirt path across the corner of my yard? I know teenagers use it as a shortcut home from school. I didn't give them permission, but I know they are there.
Once you know, or should anticipate, that trespassers are present, a narrow duty awakens.
What is the duty?
You have a duty to warn them or protect them from conditions that meet all three of these criteria.
Okay, what are the three?
The condition must be concealed, so hidden. It must be artificial, meaning man-made.
Okay.
And it must be highly dangerous, capable of causing serious bodily harm or death.
Concealed, artificial, dangerous. So if I have an abandoned 50-foot deep mine shaft hidden under some weak, rotting wooden boards right next to that dirt path?
You must put up a warning sign or a fence. It is hidden, it is man-made, and it is deadly.
But notice what is not on the list. Natural conditions.
Exactly. If you have a steep, slippery natural ravine or a patch of poisonous plants, you owe the trespasser no duty. Nature is nature. The trespasser takes the land as they find it.
We've talked about adult trespassers, but the law treats children completely differently, right? Kids don't really understand property lines.
Exactly. This brings us to one of the most famous rules in tort law, the attractive nuisance doctrine.
The attractive nuisance doctrine.
During the Industrial Revolution, railroad companies were leaving dangerous, fascinating equipment, like train turntables, right next to residential neighborhoods. Children would sneak into play and they were getting crushed.
Oh.
The courts realized that applying strict adult trespasser rules to a curious 6-year-old was incredibly cruel.
So they created a rule to protect kids. The outline gives us a 5-letter spell, a mnemonic, to remember the elements of attractive nuisance. KKYUF.
KKUCs. Let's walk through this. A child sneaks onto a construction site and gets hurt. To sue the landowner, what is the first K the parents must prove?
What does the first K stand for?
The first K is no. The landowner must know, or have reason to know, that children are likely to trespass in that area.
So if the construction site is right next to an elementary school,
Exactly. The landowner definitely knows kids are around.
the second K.
The second K is also no. The landowner must know that the artificial condition on their land poses an unreasonable risk of death or serious injury to children.
They know the deep foundation pit fills with water and looks like a swimming pool.
Exactly.
The Y.
Y stands for youth. Because of their youth, the children do not discover or cannot appreciate the danger.
Because a 6-year-old doesn't understand that the muddy water in a construction pit is thick and impossible to swim in.
Exactly.
The U.
U stands for utility. This is a balancing test, just like the learned hand formula we talked about.
The scale again.
Right. The utility to the landowner of maintaining the condition and the burden of fixing it are slight compared to the massive risk to the children.
So if fixing the problem just requires throwing a $100 tarp over the pit, the burden is incredibly slight.
Right. And the final letter, F.
What is F?
F stands for fail.
Right.
The landowner fails to exercise reasonable care to protect the children. They didn't buy the tarp. They didn't lock the gate.
KKYUF. No kids trespass. Know the danger. Youth doesn't understand it. Utility and burden is slight. Fail to protect.
If you have all five, the landowner is liable for the trespassing child's injuries.
Okay, let's open the gate and move to Category 2, licensees. Who gets this label?
The terminology here is terrible, and it tricks students every year. A licensee is someone who enters your land with your permission, but they are there for their own purposes or for social reasons, not for your commercial business.
Give me the classic example.
The absolute classic example is a social guest.
Let me stop you. If I invite my best friend over for dinner, they are not an invitee.
Correct. In legal terms, your best friend is just a licensee. They have a license to be there.
Why are they in a lower category than a customer at a store?
It goes back to Old English property law. A social guest is not bringing you money. The law assumed that if a guest comes into your home, they take the home exactly as the host uses it. They don't get special treatment just because they're visiting.
Okay, so what duty do I owe my friend when they come over?
You have a duty to warn them of concealed dangers that are actually known to you.
Known to me.
Let's say one of the wooden steps leading to your basement is completely rotten, but it looks perfectly fine from the outside. It's a hidden trap, and you know about it. You must warn your friend, hey, skip the third step.
But what if I had absolutely no idea the step was rotting from termites? Do I have a duty to hire a home inspector before I throw a dinner party?
No. And that is the crucial limitation. For a licensee, you have NO duty to actively inspect your property to discover unknown dangers. You only have to warn them about the traps you already know exist.
That brings us to Category 3, the highest level of protection. Invitees. Who are they?
Invitees are people who enter the land for the commercial benefit of the possessor, or people entering land that is held open to the general public.
Like a customer buying milk at a grocery store.
Or a patient walking into a hospital. Or a citizen walking through a free municipal park.
Because they're bringing economic benefit, or the land is public, the duty goes way up. What is the duty?
The possessor owes an invitee a duty of reasonable care. This means they must warn of known dangers, PLUS. They have an affirmative duty to actively inspect the premises to discover hidden dangers.
So the grocery store manager can't say, well, I didn't know someone dropped a jar of pickles on aisle 4.
Exactly. The law says you should have known. You have a duty to have employees walking the aisles every 30 minutes inspecting the floors, specifically to find those spills before a customer slips.
The outline uses a specific word here for invitees, non-delegable. What does that mean?
Let's say you own a large shopping mall. You know the elevators are tricky, so you hire a professional independent elevator maintenance company to fix them. You pay them good money, but they do a negligent job, the elevator drops, and a customer is injured.
I would immediately point at the elevator company and say, sue them. I hired professionals. I delegated the duty to them.
And you would lose. The duty to keep premises safe for an invitee is non-delegable, meaning you cannot pass the buck.
So I am still on the hook.
You, the possessor of the mall, remain legally on the hook to the injured customer. Now, later on, you can sue the elevator company for breach of contract to get your money back, but the customer gets to sue you.
That is a powerful rule. Are there any exceptions to this high duty for invitees? What if I own a massive, beautiful farm and I decide to let the public hike on my trails for free?
Many states have a recreational use exception.
Recreational use.
If you open your private land to the public for recreational purposes and you do not charge an admission fee, your duty drops significantly. You are generally only liable if you act maliciously or with gross negligence.
The policy here is pretty obvious. We want to encourage landowners to share the outdoors with the public without living in fear of being sued because someone tripped over a tree root.
Exactly.
Now, the outline mentions that the modern trend in courts is to abandon these three categories. What are they doing instead?
About half the states and the third restatement decided that separating social guests from business customers was just too confusing. So they merged licensees and invitees together.
So what is the new rule?
The modern rule simply says if someone has permission to be on your land, you owe them general reasonable care under all the circumstances. The only category they keep somewhat separate is the trespasser.
But for the MBE.
Master the traditional three: trespasser, licensee, invitee.
Okay, we are on the final stretch. Let's look at the edges of our possessor neighborhood. What happens when property is rented out?
When a landlord leases an apartment to a tenant, the tenant takes legal possession. The general rule is that the tenant assumes the duty of care, and the landlord is no longer liable for what happens inside the apartment.
But landlords don't escape completely. We have a 5-letter mnemonic for when a landlord remains liable even after handing over the keys. CHAPN, C-H-A-P-N, what is the C?
Common areas. The landlord still controls and is liable for the hallways, stairwells, lobbies, and parking lots.
B-H.
Hidden dangers. If the landlord knows the apartment has a hidden defect, like faulty wiring inside the walls, and fails to warn the tenant when they move in, the landlord remains liable.
Day.
Agreed to repair. If the lease explicitly states the landlord will fix the balcony and they fail to do it, they are liable for injuries that result.
The P.
Public use. If the landlord leases a space knowing the tenant will open it to the public, like a convention hall, and knows there is a dangerous defect, the landlord is liable. Negligent repairs. Even if the landlord didn't have to fix the sink, if they volunteer to fix it and do a terrible negligent job that causes the pipe to burst and injure someone, they are liable for creating a new hazard.
CHAPN. Common areas, hidden dangers, agreed to repair, public use, negligent repairs. Now, let's step completely off the property. Let's stand on the public sidewalk outside the fence. Does the landowner owe a duty to people walking by?
It depends on what harms them. If a giant man-made neon sign falls off the building and crushes a pedestrian, yes. You owe a duty regarding artificial man-made conditions.
What if a natural mudslide washes off the property and covers the sidewalk?
The traditional rule is no duty for natural conditions. Nature is nature.
Is there an exception?
Yes, a very common test question. Trees in urban areas. If you live in a crowded city or a dense suburb, you have an affirmative duty to visually inspect your trees and cut down dead branches before they fall on pedestrians or cars.
Last detail. Seller's real estate. I sell my house, hand over the deed. Am I totally clear?
Almost. A seller has a duty to disclose hidden, dangerous conditions that they know about, which a buyer wouldn't reasonably discover during a normal walkthrough. And the seller's liability continues until the new buyer has had a reasonable time to move in, inspect the property, and fix it themselves.
Wow. Okay. We have built an incredible, sprawling city map of negligence today.
We covered a lot.
We started by laying our foundation, the compass of our map, dogs bite careless drivers, duty, breach, causation, damages.
The core framework.
We walked into the duty neighborhood. We saw Judge Cardozo draw a glowing zone of danger circle on the ground, leaving everyone outside it with no case. We added special protections for heroic rescuers, intended beneficiaries, and viable fetuses. We walked down the dark alley of failure to act and learned the harsh truth that you can watch someone drown. But we put up our Picard pace car sign to remind us when we must act. Peril, authority, contract, assumption, relationship. We moved to the town square to measure breach. We met the imaginary, reasonably prudent phantom. We learned he's unyielding for mental limitations, but adjusts for physical blindness. We learned kids get their own subjective phantom, unless they were driving cars. We watched the judge weigh the cost-benefit scale, probability times severity versus the burden of fixing it.
The learned-in-hand formula.
We walked through the commercial district, learning that doctors are protected by their professional custom, but factories are not. We drove through traffic court, using negligence per se as a shortcut to prove breach automatically if a safety law is broken.
And we stopped at the transit station.
Yes, noting the high duties of common carriers, the guest statutes for drivers, and the distinct rules for bailments depending on who gets the benefit. And finally, we explored the massive suburbs of land possessors. We banned spring guns for trespassers. We used the KKYUF spell to protect children from attractive nuisances. We invited licensees, our social guests, over and warned them of known hidden traps. We rolled out the red carpet for invitees, the customers, and actively inspected the aisles for them. And we handed the keys to the tenant, but kept the landlord on the hook for JHAPN. Common areas, hidden dangers, agreed to repair, public use, negligent repairs.
If you can visualize that city map, if you can see those neighborhoods, you have mastered the foundational rules of negligence. The MBE will try to throw complicated, distracting facts at you, but if you walk the streets of this map logically, you'll spot the correct answer every single time.
Before we go, I want to leave you with a final thought. We spent this entire time talking about human conduct, the reasonably prudent person, an imaginary human making human choices. But think about the world you are entering as a new lawyer. Artificial intelligence is already being used to scan MRIs and make medical diagnoses. Self-driving cars are already navigating our city streets. As these machines take over the roles of doctors and drivers, who becomes the standard?
It is truly the next great frontier of tort law.
Do we judge a medical AI against the standard of a reasonably prudent human doctor? Or a decade from now, will human doctors be sued because their human hands couldn't perform surgery with the mechanical perfection of a reasonably prudent machine? The standard of care is a living, breathing thing. It will evolve drastically during your career. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Trust your mental map, take your time reading the facts, and you are going to conquer this exam. Until next time.